And then we go. So let me introduce myself. I am Giovanna. I'm expat buying manager. I also help people with the rental part, and we also have a new department, a letting department. I'm from Brazil. Been in the Netherlands for about 14 years, almost 15. I have two children. As I said, moved to Eindhoven 2009. Rented many places in this country in different cities until I bought my first house. I renovated completely, I sold it, and I bought a new one, and I also renovated completed. I hope I can sell it in the future and get a new one because I do like to move. Some of the things we're going to talk today, a little introduction of everything, some market info, some market drivers, some savings, what do you need to be able to buy a property in the Netherlands, and 3 tips to win in the current market, and how do you get an offer accepted, and of course the whole timeline of the process. And yes, we do have a mortgage advisor present today, so we're also going to talk about the mortgage with you. Greatness is achieved in the agents of others. So that's why I would like to introduce our team at the EHNN. So that's me, Giovanna. We have Ludo. We all have lived abroad in different countries. Ludo is actually Dutch, but have been in the US. I speak English and Dutch. It's learning a little bit Portuguese towards because of us. Rafael is my colleague who is here today and is going to help you with the Q&A, with the questions. She's also from Brazil. He speaks Portuguese, Spanish, and English. Also a little bit of Dutch. Rick is Dutch, has been living in South America and South Africa as well, and speaks Spanish, English, and Dutch. So we have a very big team that can help you, and we had the experience of living abroad, of course. A brief introduction of our company already started. We are no traditional real estate agents, which means that we are not selling properties. We do not have properties for sale. We do buy our clients to help and buy, and now current with letting as well. We just started. We do charge a percentage of the appraisal value. I will explain to you later in the presentation what is the market value, and that's where we charge our percentage. And the market value is given by an appraisal. We know what it looks like to settle in a new country. We all have been living abroad in different countries. So I think that's one of the most important things in our company, that we all know what you guys have been through, or whether it's renting or buying or being in the whole process, right? I think make things a little bit easier when you know where that people know what are the whole situation is. What is our added value? Well, I already said a little bit. I think especially that because we know the situation that you are. We are no selling agents. Selling agents take offers from H&N much more seriously, and that's correct. Most of the time, the selling agents like to know if the person we're interested in the property has already contact with someone that will make the correct offer. They have the correct clause in the contracts and everything that can protect them so that you can go through. And a lot of people do not have that, and that makes a huge difference. We can sometimes book in viewings when it's no longer possible. Also, something's true, they have always a spot for buying agents. We support by reviewing Dutch legal and property documents. All the documents of the properties that you see, whether it's an apartment or a house, they are in Dutch. So we're going to go through them with you as well. We always speak Dutch, so that makes things a little bit easy. We help define market value, and that's one of the most important things, and that's what I'm going to go through with you very deep further in the presentation, so you understand what market value is and what the difference between the value you see on Funda and the value you see in the market value is, so you can understand how it works, the market. We will inform about rules and regulations. We're also going to talk about that. There are different rules for different properties, different values, different cities as well, and that's very, very important. We make sure you don't make the same mistakes we have made, of course, because we all have been in the process that you are, so we know what to look for, what things are the correct and what the best way for you. Today I would like to introduce a colleague, Wouter from Expat Mortgage, so I'll let him introduce himself, of course, but thank you so much for being here today.
And I'm unmuted. Giovanna, thanks for the introduction. Yeah, my name is Wouter Holtrop. It's as Dutch as it comes. Couldn't change it for this presentation. Municipality wouldn't let me. And I work at Expat Mortgages. And what we do is we help internationals financing homes. It's also the only thing we do. We specialize in mortgages for international clients. And the first question that I always get in a lot of cases is, am I even eligible for a property? So today, the scope of this presentation is to give you some insights in how do you become eligible, what kind of costs are connected, what kind of monthly payments should you look out, and how can you be prepared for your mortgage application. I think I'm starting with this part of the presentation, Giovanna, right? Very nice. So the eligibility, this is the most standard question, is am I even eligible for a property or for a mortgage? And the good news is the answer is in 90% of the cases is yes, but you do need to follow some certain requirements, of course. And the first one is you need to have a Dutch social security number called a burger service number. You need a valid residence permit and you need a valid passport. So those are your personal documents. What happens is everybody that comes to the Netherlands as an international, they are here as a highly skilled migrant, or at least a lot of you are here as a highly skilled migrant. But it is a temporary residence permit. The temporary residence permit for highly skilled migrants is active for 5 years. But because you are a highly skilled migrant, it does mean that you have the same options as an EU national or a non-EU national. The difference between EU and non-EU is quite straightforward. If you are from inside the European Union, you only need one thing, and that is you need a valid passport. There's a free transfer of properties and goods, so this way you can get a mortgage if you just have an EU passport. I think we can go on to some next slides where the personal documents will be mentioned. Exactly, and there's also one other thing that banks do check in the Netherlands, and that is called the BKR, the Bureau of Credit Registration. So you know a bank wants to accept you as a client if you have a Dutch social security number, passport, and a residence permit. But a bank is going to check what kind of creditor are you. And they do this in the Bureau of Credit Registration. And this works a little bit different than in the countries that you might come from. Because in the Netherlands, it is not possible to build up positive credit history. That means if you just arrived in the Netherlands and you did not take out a loan at ABN AMRO at Schiphol, that you have a perfect credit score. In some other countries, you need to have credit and pay it back to become a good borrower. But in the Netherlands, this is different. You are only registered with negative loans. Remember one thing, all loans that you have in the Netherlands are registered in the BKR and they impact your maximum mortgage. You can remember a little bit of a rule of thumb, and that is all loans that you have within the BKR, if you multiply them by 5, that would lower your maximum capacity. So if you took out a credit of 10,000 euros at one of the banks, your maximum capacity goes down with approximately 50,000 euros. We can go on to some next sheets where we will see that after your personal assessment and the BKR, of course, a bank wants to know what is your financial position. And your financial assessment is for the bank to determine what is your maximum loan. And I'll give a couple of rules of thumbs as well. If you have your gross annual income and you multiply it by 5, you roughly have your maximum mortgage. So your total gross income multiplied by 5 is roughly your maximum mortgage. But what is considered gross annual income? We need to look at 2 main options in the Netherlands. If you're an entrepreneur or if you are employed at a company. Today, the scope is mainly on being employed at a company. And then you have 2 main options. Are you here on a temporary assignment, maybe a 1-year contract, or do you have an indefinite assignment? On a temporary contract, it's also possible to get a mortgage approved, but you would need to have an employment continuation statement signed by HR. And what that states is, if the employee continues to perform properly and if operating conditions remain the same, the company has the intention to convert the contract into a permanent appointment. This statement means that banks will assess your income as if you are on an indefinite assignment. And most companies are quite easy in giving out that declaration of intent because they are not bound to give it. So no, even on a temporary contract, you can get a mortgage. Even if you only have been working here for 1 month, it's already possible to apply for a mortgage in a lot of cases. So now you know what kind of contract is accepted, but what is then considered gross annual income? The main parts are fixed and stable parts connected to your income. So of course, that's your base salary, gross salary. If you look on your payslip, it's the top line. But also in the Netherlands, we think it's important that you take holiday days and that you take holidays. And therefore, Dutch employers give holiday allowance. It's 8% that you probably received today or yesterday or tomorrow. It's an 8% allowance at the end of the year. That is a fixed and stable part of your income, so we can take that into consideration again. It gets a little bit more tricky with bonuses, because then it depends, is the bonus connected to your personal performance or is it connected to your company performance? If it's related to personal performance, we can take the amount into consideration roughly over the last 12 months. That is for commission or sales type bonuses. If it's connected to the company performance, then we have to look at a 3-year average. It gets a little bit more on a case-to-case file with, by example, car allowances, cost of services, premiums. This has to be looked at case-per-case file. Car allowances, in some cases, we can take them into consideration. I had a client last week. He lived in Amsterdam debt center and his office was really close by, but he still got a car allowance. He said, I don't even have a car and I don't want a car. I live in Amsterdam. I don't need one. I'm faster with my bike. Then in cases like this, we sometimes can take it into consideration. So then we move forward from the financial options to the property, because now you know your maximum mortgage is around 5 times your gross annual income. So let's say for this example, you have an income of 80,000 euros. Then you would be possible to borrow 400,000 euros. Then we get on to the property assessment. And with the property assessment, it is depending on the bank, how much will the bank finance for you? The property assessment is done by the bank in the form of a valuation report. The valuation report is needed for the bank. So even though you have a budget of 400,000 euros, it doesn't mean you can always borrow this amount. Let's say you want to buy my house. You have the help of EHN to make an offer, do the due diligence, do the negotiations with my selling agent, and then we reach an agreement. You want to buy my house for 300,000 euros, or at least my house is valued at 300,000 and you offer 330 because you need to make a strong bid to be able to win it. The bank does not care about my asking price. The bank also doesn't care about your purchase price. So my asking price was 300, your purchase price was 330. The bank doesn't care about these values. We need to send a valuator to the property, and the valuator will determine the value that the bank takes into consideration. So what happens if you do this overbidding? And Giovanna just mentioned as well, it is really important to work with a credible and knowledgeable agent at that point, because they do the due diligence on before you actually can get a valuation report. They do the due diligence on what do they think a house is worth. Good, trustworthy, and credible agents have the same systems available as valuators. So if they use their knowledge well, on average, we see that even if somebody overbids on an asking price, that the market value roughly is the same. We can move forward to some next sheets. And the property assessment is then done. So you know that the bank is willing to give the same amount that the property is worth. And that is called the loan to value. And this might be a little bit different in the Netherlands than you might expect from your home country. Because in the Netherlands, we finance 100% loan to value. So I repeat, 100% so-called loan to value. So it means if the property value is the same as your offer or accepted offer, then the bank is willing to give you the full amount as a mortgage. And then you only need to pay the closing costs yourself. In the following sheet, we go over these costs. So the closing costs are between 3 and 6%. The closing costs are transfer tax, real estate agent's cost, notary, mortgage advice, and valuation costs. This year, there are some differences. If you are under 35 years old and you buy under 440,000 euros, you are exempt from paying transfer tax, which saves you 2% of the total purchase price. So now you know that the closing costs are also depending on how old are you, how high is your purchase price. But on average, if you are outside of the exemptions, you pay between 5 and 6% of the purchase price as a closing cost. If you buy under 440 and under 35, the closing cost will be between 3 and 4%. So now you roughly know what the closing costs are. But then, of course, you also want to know what are my monthly payments for a mortgage. And I'm going to give some rules of thumbs. And first is, per 100,000 euros that you borrow, you pay approximately 450 euros per month. Per 100,000 euros that you borrow, you pay approximately 450 euros per month. But there are 5 main ways to influence these, the monthly payments. And the first one is not so hard. It's the mortgage amount. The more you borrow, the more you pay. Wow, what a surprise on a presentation like this. It doesn't get much more complex than this. But you do have some options, because in the Netherlands, we finance 100% loan to value. But that doesn't mean you need to borrow that amount. If you put a down payment in, you get a lower interest rate from the bank. So you can play with, maybe you have some money on a savings account, and then you can put it into your mortgage. And in the next sheet, the second option will come, and that is the term of the mortgage. And standard, we repay our mortgage in 30 years. That means that you get 30 years to repay your complete debt, and after 30 years, the complete mortgage is repaid. And then on the next sheet, we see the third option. So you have the mortgage amount, the term, but then we come to interest rates. And interest rates, you have flexibility in the Netherlands. You can fix it for a 1-month term, that's called a floating rate. You can also fix it for 5 years, for 10 years, and you can even fix your interest rate for 20 or 30 years. So the full duration of your mortgage. And remember, normally it is the case, the longer you fix your interest rate or buy in security from the bank to know that your rate is not changing, the longer you fix your rate, the more expensive the monthly payments become. So on the fourth option, we should have the mortgage types. Very good. It's the annuity or linear. These are the most two chosen option. Annuity or linear means annuity has a fixed payment to the bank. Every month, your payment to the bank is the same, but the equation of interest and repayments, that shifts over time. So over the course of time, your payment stays the same, but more of that payment will be allocated towards repayment. And linear works a little bit different. Linear starts with higher monthly payments that repay your debt faster, but they get lower over time. So with an annuity, your net payments, your taxes, or your payment after the tax refund, they go up over time. And with the linear, they go down over time. And then the last way to influence your monthly payments is via insurances and taxes. The insurances, some of them are mandatory for lenders. One of them is the building insurance. A bank wants to know for sure that if something bad happens to the property, that the property will be repaired. Therefore, we have to get a building insurance. And the building insurance covers big defects on the house. If a storm hits and something needs to be repaired, a building insurance covers this. But also one other thing is important is, let's say you and your partner both buy a property, but only one earns the income and the other or take care of children or is looking for employment. In that case, we also advise clients to take out a life insurance. It's important to make sure these safety nets are in play if you buy a house together, because nothing is even worse than losing your loved one and then have to sell your house as well. And a small part regarding the taxes, interest is tax deductible in the mortgage. This means that from your mortgage payment, a part is refunded via our tax government. And that is called hypotheekrenteaftrek, mortgage tax deductibility. Your interest for your mortgage is partially tax deductible. The same goes for all closing costs related to the mortgage. So you get a tax refund if you buy a property and you have a mortgage on it. This is why in a lot of cases, it's more interesting to buy a place than to rent a place. So these are the 5 ways to influence your monthly payments. The amount of mortgage, how do you repay it, the type of mortgage, also the term of the mortgage is important. How fast do you repay the mortgage? What kind of insurances do you take out? And what choice do you make in setting your interest rates? We can go to one of the last sheets for my part. Then we have some time for questions as well. This is a part of our team. We couldn't fit all our colleagues on here, but what we do at Expat Mortgages is we check which lender has the best offer available for you. We work throughout the Netherlands. So we have some advisors in Roermond. I don't know if any of you ever been there, but we opened shop in Eindhoven as well. We have a country-wide coverage. What we try to do is make your life a little bit easier, take away the stress with a good preparation, and help you afterwards with some extra points that you need to do for your mortgage. For example, we try to help our clients with setting up a provisional tax rebate. What it just means is you get your taxes paid on a monthly basis instead of once a year. For all these things, I think we have time for some questions afterwards, for mortgage-related questions. And this was a part that I wanted to explain. How do you become eligible? Those were the three main requirements: valid residence permit, social security number, valid passport. Your maximum mortgage is around 5 times your gross annual income. Borrowing 100,000 euros costs you around 450 euros per month, and you have around 5 ways to influence your monthly payments. And then I want to pass back the word to Giovanna. I want to thank you for your time.
Good, thank you. And indeed, we do have time for the end for the questions, so get ready. Normally they come with a lot, so that's a good thing. So I'm going to talk to you about some market info, so just to have an idea about prices in the whole Netherlands and Eindhoven region as well. So the average price on the Q1 on Eindhoven was 394,000 euros for new builds. And just so you know, new builds are the property that is to be built. There was 468, is a bit more higher than the normal. And then you have also the average price for the Q4 in 2022 is 407, just for you to have a comparison. We also have the numbers for Eindhoven. This is for Eindhoven for the Q1. Average purchase price 424. So you see that it is quite high as well. And then the average price per square meter is 3,440. So a lot of houses have been sold already in the region. But just for you to have an idea, sales times, it's a little bit higher than it was, 38 days. Yeah, normally it was, I think it was about 24, 25. It's getting a little bit higher right now. But yeah, just for you to have an idea about the average price in the region. Of course, it depends on the type of house. This is just a big picture. And then we can go to your own situation when you book an intake with us, for example. Some market drivers, what cause the prices to be so high? For example, fiscal benefits. Walter talked about the tax exemption, the 2% transfer taxes that you do not have to pay if you are younger than 35 years old and you buy a house up to 440. And interest rebate, he also talked about that. That makes a huge difference when you're doing your mortgage. No capital gains, tax-free parent donation. It's going to end not if your parents are living abroad and they want to donate some money, then you have no taxes on the amount of money they are donating for you for buying a property. But if your parents do pay taxes in the Netherlands, this year they still can donate up to almost 28,000 euros, or almost 28 or 29. And then, but from next year on, any amount, it will not be tax-free anymore. They will have to pay taxes. But again, if your parents live abroad and they want to donate any amount of money, it doesn't matter. There is no tax on that amount. And low interest rates, we talked about, Walter can talk about that if you have questions. But although for a lot of people, interest rates are much higher than they were, it's still a very low interest rates compared to years and years ago. Of course, a few years ago, a year and a half or so ago, the interest rates were about 2%. Yes, we understand that. But now it's still, if you compare with 10 years ago, where they were 7, 8, 9, 10, it is still a very good time to buy, and they are still very low comparing to 2 years ago. And the rental market, of course, it's very competitive, and the high rents are the rents in this country are, I don't know, I don't like to use the word ridiculous, but at one point it is indeed, I'm sorry, it's very, very high, especially because the regulations are not everywhere to regulate the prices, and the landlords especially in our region, they can choose whatever they want as a price, so that makes it very hard. And the amount of people that are here, of course, and the supply, it is low, very low. It's a lack of supply in the whole country. So that makes very hard. And then it makes also the price to go up because we have to live somewhere, right? Whether it's rental or buying a property. So that makes it very difficult. The current market increase of interest rates, but it's still, as I said before, historically low, 80% more active listings, less overbidding. We see that things are kind of stabilizing on that path. Of course, it depends on the property, it depends on energy label, depends on the location. Property where you see there is not much transformation to do in the property, renovation, and the energy label is A, for example, and the location is more central, or depends on the neighborhood with this special school. You see that, that there's much more people willing to pay more for that property. That's a normal process, but we do see less overbidding, and we're going to talk about overbidding as well, because I want to explain to you what is actually the overbidding. We're going to talk to you about it a little bit further. There's still a lack of supply, as I said before, due to the high material costs, especially for new builds. It's been very hard for them to finish the constructions because there are no materials whatsoever, or the costs are double in the past year because of the war and many other aspects as well. I have to click it. What you do need in savings before you start. So Walter already talked to you about it, at 3 to 5%. And here we have a good picture of that. You can see what are the costs actually. So if you are younger than 35, so when you see the 2%, 3 to 6%, so you can count if you are younger than 35 and the budget that you have, it's only up to 440. You only pay a house up to 440K. It means that you do not pay those 2%. So you can calculate about 3 to 4%. So that's what 3 to 4% of the purchase price. So that's what we need in cash to be able to buy a house in the Netherlands, because as Walter said before, the bank will only finance the property, not the costs of the process. And even the property, the bank will only finance what is going to be in the valuation report, what is the market value. I'll go through deeply on that further in the presentation. You do have to pay a notary in the Netherlands. It's mandatory. They will do your mortgage deed and your transfer deed as well. The costs in Eindhoven are about 1,500–1,600 for the whole process. You do need to have a mortgage advisor to do your mortgage. You are able to go to your own bank, but they also charge. And if I may say, Walter, I use the mortgage advisors for my own properties. And the big difference is that they do have a very access to many lenders, about, if I'm not mistaken, about 38–40 different lenders, and then they can give you a much more bright look and interest rates and what will be best for you, more detailed one, while the bank will only, of course, look at their own interest rates. And us, as not mortgage advisors, for example, we only have access to 3 banks anyway, that you can actually walk in and talk to them about it. So the mortgage advisor will have a much larger amount of lenders that then provide you and see what is best for you. We also EHN, we charge a percentage on the appraisal value. I will explain to you that what it is later. The appraiser itself, to make the valuation report, it costs between 700 and 900, and Eindhoven is 800. Technical inspection, that's correct, for 65. That's something that you can choose if you like to have or not for the property. And we, as your agent, of course, we're going to always advise you what is the best option. If you do not speak Dutch, it cannot only be understanding Dutch, it has to be fluently Dutch language. You do need an interpreter, that's mandatory. You can choose your own language, but the price we put in here is for the English translator. Bank guarantee, that's also mandatory. We're also going to talk about that. It is 10% of the purchase price that you have to transfer to the notary. And if you do not have that money, you don't need to have that in savings. The mortgage advisor can always help you with that. There is a little fee you have to pay. And if you'd like to have a mortgage called NEHG, National Mortgage Guarantee, you do have to pay a fee for that. It's one-time fee. It's 0.6% of the mortgage amount. NEHG is a special mortgage that gives you most of the time low interest rates, and it gives a little bit more protection, especially being an expat or things that can change in life. But
Giovanna, you almost have all the knowledge to become a mortgage advisor.
Oh, you see, no, I do not intend to work with the numbers that much.
You're exactly correct. It's no, very good. Well done.
Thank you, appreciate that. But I will let the numbers to you. But yeah, NEHG is a very good option. The NEHG, the only thing you have to pay attention is that you can only have NEHG if you buy a property up to 405,000 euros. That's the only way you can have that special mortgage. And if you become our clients and Wouter's clients, for example, we always going to advise you to talk to your mortgage advisor about it because it's very interest process. A lot of the things that are mandatory for having a mortgage, they are tax deductible, which is very, very good. So at the end, you're always going to get a bit of that 3 to 6% back in your next taxes for the next year. So that makes also a huge difference. But just for you to have an idea here, you can see step by step what do you need to have in cash to be able to have a mortgage in the Netherlands. Let's move forward. 3 tips to win in the current market. So this is the very important part that I told you about market value and appraisal report, as Wouter said it before. So I would like to show you an example, 395,000 euros. This is the price that it was on Funda. Funda is what we call asking price. So for you to have an idea, if you are a real estate agent and you do like to sell a property, you can add any value that you like on Funda, for example. It doesn't mean that that's the correct market value for the house. And that's why the bank needs a valuation report, official one done by an appraiser. So just for you to have an idea, 395, that's the asking price. Remember Funda value. Market value for this property, which means appraisal value on the valuation report, is 515. And at the end, the buyers decided to pay 435,000 euros for this property. Here is for you to understand when we talk about overbidding and market value. So when we talk about overbidding, we talk about market value. We don't talk about Funda, because Funda is something that is, it's not in the power of anyone. It's really from the real estate agent and the seller to decide what they want for the house. Market value is what the bank wants to know and what you need to know to send an offer, because it's based on market value that you're going to have, that you're going to get your mortgage, of course, if you have the budget, right? That's how it goes. So in this case, for example, if you think about Funda value, they did overbid about 10% of the Funda value, of the asking price. Market value, they only overbid for 0.8%, just to have an idea. So for you to understand market value here, 415, this will be the value that is going to be in the valuation report. If you paid, and in this case, the clients did pay 435, it means that the difference they will have to pay in cash. Those 20,000 euros, they have to pay in cash. They're not going to be able to finance, only 415. So that's why market value is very, very important. And having an agent, we are able to have a whole research around and find out what the market value is. So you are safe when you send your mortgage.
What happens if in the previous sheet, one thing, what we see a lot as well is this question that Giovanna just explains. And that's the question that, the question I also get a lot as a mortgage advisor is, how much should I overbid? And it's a question that I just can't answer, because if you have an example, I sell my house and Giovanna is now my neighbor. Yes. We have the flexibility to ask whatever we want. So yes, maybe we try to sell the exact same apartment. I ask 395 and Giovanna asked 365. Yes. Then it feels like if you buy the property for the same price, that you're really overpaying so much if you buy Giovanna's place. But the place could be exactly the same. That's the whole reason why selling an asking price, it's also a selling strategy. Some people ask way too little, so that a lot of people come into the property and then they just expect an overbidding war. So
yes, indeed, overbidding war. Yeah,
this is why you need a good and credible agent to check for you what will be the value that it will actually be worth, because all these values don't matter anything unless the market value is roughly the same. Yes, indeed. And the bank really wants to know the market value. So there's no point in trying to get in their war, because in anything above that, you have to remember you will have to pay in cash. There's no other way. Otherwise, you're just not going to get the deal. That's how it goes. And that's also what we saw now a little bit, is that is a year ago, Giovanna spoke briefly about interest rates, and people are now comparing the rates to what they were last year or 2 years ago. And this is an unrealistic moment in history. The European central banks and world banks bought off billions of stocks from other banks, and they pushed in billions into the market. Money was just too cheap. It was actually quite bad for the institutional investors like pension funds. So it's good that we're at a normal interest rate again. And as Giovanna stated, we're under the average calculated over 60 years. Interest is higher than it was, only it's still relatively low. And maybe some countries that you might come from, it is really low if you compare it to that. In combination with 100% loan to value and an insane demand for houses, we do expect that the housing market will stay strong for the coming time, actually.
Yes, indeed. We don't expect any, because that's what people are more afraid, right? How much I can pay, and if I overbid, and what if the market is going down, for example? Look, the chance that happen is really low because the lack of supply in this country, it's unbelievable. And also because we as expats, we don't stop coming, do we? It's people coming every single day, a lot in our region. It's a lot with ISML, for example, with other the high-tech campus, with the many companies that are there. So the lack of supply is going to stay there for the next 5, 6, 7 years still. They are not able to build that fast. Especially
it's the same what you say. It's the demand for internationals even. Because a lot of internationals have a skill set that we lack in the Netherlands, and we need internationals to fill these holes for our big corporate communities with companies.
Yeah, so so in the lack of supply and not having the materials to finish everything or to build as fast as they want, not even having the amount of people they need to build those all those houses and properties, that makes the market really stabilize, which it makes, but it makes interest rates go high, the rental go higher, of course. And then it's much better to buy, even when you think the interest rates are not like they were a year and a half ago, right? And especially if you stay in the Netherlands for at least 3 to 5 years, very much, it's a very good deal to buy instead of paying rent for that long, for sure. Here is another example just for you to understand about overbidding when people talk to you about, oh, we have to overbid that much. So in this case, asking price, as Walter said, some people put it really low to have more people coming to the viewings, and then you have this idea that you have to overbid gigantic. But if you look at 375 and you actually pay the market value, for example, 415, if you compare to Fund, yes, indeed, you did overbid. But at the end, you didn't if you pay 415 because the market value is 415. So in this case, of course, they purchase for 435. But just for you to have an idea, even if the asking price is 375, you pay 415, you still paying the market value. So it is a very good deal, actually, which means that the bank will finance 415. But yeah, if you look at Funda value, you did overbid for sure. So that's very important to understand, because everyone talks about overbidding regarding Funda. What you need to think about it's market value. And here I have the opposite, just to understand another example. 450. And then in this case, they put the price too high, and we did our price research, and we found out that the market value was actually lower than the Funda value. It was 425. And they purchased the house for 450. So in this case, they're going to have to pay the 25K anyway, because the market value was lower than what was in the, but if they talk to you, for example, if someone say to you, they might say that they didn't overbid. But they didn't overbid, but the market value was lower in this case. So that's for you to understand about the overbidding. You actually still overbidding. You overbid 25% of the market value. It didn't overbid Funda, but you overbid market value. And that's, again, it's what the bank wants to know. And here is it the opposite. Asking price 450, market value 425, and then you purchase the house for 425, which is really perfect. But a lot of people will tell you that they purchased the house for much less than it was in Funda. And then people have this idea that they can always go much higher than what is on Funda, but you really don't know what the market value given by an appraiser is or by an agent. So that makes very difficult to understand was the overbidding or not overbidding or buy under market value, because I have a lot of people coming to me and say, but can I pay less than Funda value? Yeah, you might. But it doesn't mean that the Funda value is correct, is the market value. So that's a good price research. Having an agent, having the correct market value makes a huge difference, especially when you have, especially for your mortgage, especially if you do need 100% mortgage, because if you need 100% mortgage, market value is what you need, nothing else really. And here,
Giovanna, do you also see it the other way around sometimes? How many times do you buy a property lower than the market value?
I just bought it lower than market value. I bought it one yesterday. But I do have to say the house was in the market for about 5 months, and it needed a lot of renovation. So because we are a region with a lot of expats and people normally want to just move in, they don't want to do, and when I say move in, it's like painting a wall is not renovation, huh, people? Renovation is like changing completely a kitchen, transform a whole bathroom, or putting floor heating. So this house needs a lot of renovation. And my client was willing to do that because he's just crazy as me. I love a renovation. I would love to renovate everything. So
I hate renovations. I'm
I
so
love
bad
it.
at
I
it.
love it. I'm ready for the next one. I did 2 already. I'm ready for the next one. And he's just like me. So he said, no, it's fine. So we paid less because the house needs a lot of renovation. And it was in the market for about 5 months already because, yeah, most of the people who come, I have to say the pictures on Funda looked very nice, but when we were there, we were like, oh no, it needs a lot. So
that's exactly what I was thinking. It doesn't happen a lot, but there are some clients asked in the chat, I think, can I borrow also the closing costs? And there's only one way how you can do it. And it happens, let's say 1 in 50, 1 in 100 purchases.
Yeah,
Giovanna just bought it yesterday, surprises me because it just doesn't happen a lot. If it happens, you are really happy because I had a client, she bought for 430. It was with a colleague of yours, and the market value in the report just came to 440. And the evaluation is that this one is just bought too cheap, actually.
Yeah.
And then we can ask for 440,000 euro mortgage, although you bought it for 430. But I also don't want to get your hopes up too high that you now call Giovanna and say, I want to buy a house, but only under market value.
Yeah, look, it's very difficult to do that under the market value. But as I said, it's a lot of renovation. And I think that we'll need about, I would say 100K to have the house in a livable, nice state as we want to. So they even have to change, for example, window frames, which is quite expensive. So that's why it's different. It's a different kind of house. It's a house that normally my clients wouldn't even go and see it.
And it's also not many people have the patience, the money, because also if you make a guesstimate for renovations can be financed into a mortgage as well. But you make estimates together with a contractor. And in reality, big renovations, I don't see them cheaper than guesstimated normally. It's almost always the other way around. If you think this is going to be 100, it will probably be 110 or even 120.
I can tell you that by experience. Yeah, that's really true. And every time you break a wall, you find something new. So that's what it goes. So it is true. You plan one thing, and I always tell my clients count around 25% more even, because then you don't get any surprise, because you will get them, but then maybe if there's some big ones, then you have the money enough to cover that. But that's a very, as you said, a singular case, right? Most likely it will be market value, and or even if depends on the house above that. But yeah, what is very important to understand is that we have to base everything on market value and not on asking price and not on Funda price and not on overbid or not overbid. So it depends on the market value. And that what we do is a good price research to make sure that you have that you have for sure the market value on the house, and you are able to finance that as well. Our winning offer, so offer a good price. We talked about this, very good price research, having everything correctly done. It's again, it's not always the highest price. If I come back on here, for example, and if you put it in your mortgage, in your offer, in this case, for example, the asking price is 450, and then you put it in your mortgage and you need to finance, you offer 450 and you need to finance 100%, you need to finance 450, and I offer 425, I'm going to get the house, and because I need finance 425 as my maximum. And the selling part, they do know what the market value is, and they know that if you want to finance 450, it's not going to be possible because the market value is 425. So even you having the highest offer, I'll be the one to get the house because I am the one who can finance 100%, not you in this case, for example, unless you offer everything in cash, this 25,000 in cash, then it's something different, and most likely they're going to give it to you. But that's just for you to understand that why not always the highest price means. Offer security to the seller. Of course, the seller wants to know if you have all your documents checked. For example, with Expat Mortgage, when we work together with a client, they always provide us with a letter saying that they have checked everything, that everything is good to go when the time to come. So, which is great. It gives the seller much more security. They know that they don't, most likely nothing will happen and everything will be fine. Offer the least amount of hassle. What is that? Is that do not be picky, basically, when you go to see a property. Of course, you can have your questions and have them answered, and you should. But if you put it in your offer, a lot of little things, I don't like this or this or this or this or that, someone else in this market will come and say, I accept it all. I don't mind. And then that makes a difference. So be aware of the things you need for yourself and talk to them, to your agent before, and get the correct advice for that, because it's not only about the price, it's always about the people who are selling the property. And offer a personal touch. We find that very important. When I bought the property I live today, they were living in this property for about, I think, 35, 40 years. They raised 3 children here, so they were very emotional selling the property. So it gave them much more security and much more like they could breathe, because they were selling the house to someone that they wanted, that they knew it, that they get to know. And we came, we visit, and we talked about it. We also wrote a letter about our family, so it made it different for them. And I know I didn't have the highest offer. Of course, it's my field, I know that, but yeah, that made a huge difference for them.
What we always try to do here is teamwork with agents and financial advice, because some of the points I have zero knowledge about, and some of the points are important that a mortgage person states something about it. And from a mortgage point of view, I don't know anything about the market value of a house. I leave that to the Giovanna or anybody at EHN. What we try to do from the mortgage perspective is 3 things. We provide the agents with a letter that we saw all your documents and that you are eligible for a mortgage amount of X. But the second one is we have the luxury that we work with expats only. And on average, expats have their stuff in order. You don't leave your home country with your administration being one big mess. This made it that our turnaround times at banks became faster. And now we could put some demands in, and that's what we're doing now. And that is at almost every lender we work with, we have a 24-hour arrangement, which means if Giovanna and you have signed a purchase agreement and we upload all documents to the bank, on average, we get a mortgage approved in a few days. Yes. And we use this in collaboration with Giovanna to build a mortgage offer. And the most important thing from the mortgage part is the subject to finance term. Financial contingency, it's also called. It's the back-out clause. And normally it's 5 to 6 weeks. But it is a period for insecurity for the sellers, because you can back out of the deal if you don't get your mortgage approved, which means the sellers don't know for sure yet until that date expires. And then it's important for the strongness of your offer. We can work with a 1 or 2 week subject to finance as well, because if we do the due diligence well, we normally can get a mortgage approved in around 2 weeks. So then the process is you sign it with Giovanna and her colleagues. You can back out for 3 days in a cooling off period. Doesn't happen a lot because normally you have to think about this before you buy a house. But if something happens, you can back out. And then you have 2 or 3 weeks to back out of the deal with a short subject to finance term. Giovanna arranges a valuation report in a few days, and then we should be able to close a mortgage quite quickly, which in combination with a strong offer with the due diligence on the values, it just creates a lot bigger chance of submitting a winning offer.
Yes, indeed. And the seller will feel much more secure knowing all of that. So that's where we come in handy and talk to them about it and make them feel secure that everything will be fine. Because as you said, if you don't get your mortgage approved, they don't sell their houses. They also are not able to buy the next one, because most of them need to sell it to be able to get the next mortgage. So that's also makes a huge difference when you are buying a property, really. They do the diligence, as we have talked about it, the technical inspector and the appraiser. Do you book them before or after your offer accepted? So just so you know, it is after your offer gets accepted. So the moment your offer gets accepted, we have about 1.5 weeks to sign the purchase agreement. And then before that happens, we will make sure the technical inspection and the evaluator are in the house to also remember the price research and everything in the offer, to make sure that value is in the evaluation report, and also for you to see if there is any problems with the house. just to understand a little bit, the technical inspector, he's not going to turn on the oven or the stove or those kind of things, but he will look at the structure of the building and the CV of the house, the whole fuse box, those kind of things. That's what they're gonna, the foundation of the property if it's necessary, and the roof, of course, but not little things in the property, because that's normal, especially if someone already lived in the house, that the kitchen is, everything is, it should be correct. And of course, we're going to go to an inspection with you at the end of the process to see if everything is correct. But that's what the technical inspector do. Report will be done in about a day or two, and the appraisal, he's going to the house to confirm that the price you offer will be in the report, and then within a few days you get the report as well. And then we sign the purchase agreement. We also have to find a notary for you, of course. And then you sign the purchase agreement, and then you can read, because you know that the what you offer is going to be in the report, and then most likely you're going to get a mortgage for that value. So that's why it's very important to do things quite fast at that time. And you do have, as Walter says before, the 3 days. 3 days we call the cool-off period. The cool-off period is it cannot be on the weekends or holidays. So we always advise our clients to sign the purchase agreement after a Wednesday. So then you have up to Monday or Tuesday, if you find on a Friday, even on a Wednesday, that you can take up to midnight, that you can really not panic. And I have to tell a story about this. And when I signed the contract for the house I live today, it's funny because I work in the field, right? But then I knew the amount of renovation for this house was gigantic. And so when we were signing the contract, I was like, I'm not sure now if I wanted to do all of that renovation, if it's going to get too much. So those 3 days are really good for that, because that's the time when you get to settle down. I hope you do everything before that you never offer. It's really help you to calm down and prepare everything for the mortgage. There is a little timeline, we put it here so you can see more or less what happens during the process, the buying process. So a lot of you are already doing search. So after you're doing your search, make sure that everything is correct with the documents of the property. You should receive a lot of documents for the property, whether it's an apartment or a house. Those documents will tell you a little bit of the history of the house. For example, how long is the roof? How old is the roof? If they have any leakage, did they fix those leakage? Those kind of things. If you work with us, we're going to do a whole summary of those documents, do the price research if you want to send an offer for their house, prepare the offer, negotiate everything for you, submit the offer, of course. Once the offer gets accepted, book the third party's appraiser and technical inspection. After that, going through with you to the purchase agreement, so you know what you're signing for, finding the notary, of course. And we also share the contract with Expat Mortgage, because we want them to see the dates, the correct dates, of course, if they have everything they need in the mortgage to protect you, in the purchase agreement, to protect you as much as they can regarding the mortgage. Once we have the approval of everyone, then you can sign the contract, and then it's time to start your mortgage process. We did put here an average of 4 weeks because we don't know who you're going to choose with as a mortgage advisor. But from my experience with Expat Mortgage, it is quite fast, people. So it gives everyone much more security, and we can even put that in the offer, actually, to make the offer look even better for the seller. After your mortgage application is approved, you have to wait until the transfer date arrives, right? So I don't know if all of you know this, but when you go to Funda and you see a property and it says available, it doesn't mean that the property is available for you to move in the next week or so. It is available to sell it. It is available to do the whole process of selling a property and buying a property. So the client, for example, that I closed, I have a client now. Well, I have a client since, is my client since last year, but we closed the deal in September last year, and he's only going to move in the 1st of June this year. So that's also something you have to think about it. Some houses will be faster, some houses will take a long time, depends if they already bought another property, or if they still have to buy another property, or yeah, those. So it's always handy to ask when is a transfer date. Of course, if we are your agents, we're going to do that for you. We're going to explain the whole process. We're also going to have to talk to Expat Mortgage about the interest rates and how much they can hold on the interest rate for you until you move in the process into the property. That also makes a difference, because you only start to pay your mortgage after you get the keys of the house. So let's use this example. My client bought the house last year, September, but moving date is June. June is when he's going to start to pay his mortgage. So that's how it works. So that's why it's important to be aligned with the advisor, with the mortgage advisor as well. So before, let's say 1st of June is your transfer date. And before you go into the transfer date comes, about 15-20 days before, you're going to receive a statement of completion, the final note. It's that slide I show you all that you have to pay is the buying costs, we call. The transfer tax is necessary, us, the mortgage advisor, the notary itself, appraisal, everything is going to be in that invoice. And then once that invoice is paid, you just have to wait to get the day at the notary. That's in this case, the 1st of June. And then before going to the notary, let's say the appointment is at 11 o'clock in the morning. Before going to the notary, we're going to the property with you to make sure that the property is in the same state as it was when you saw it, when we sent the offer. Do a last inspection, we call, if together with the selling part, together with the sellers. And then if everything's correct, then we move to the notary so you can sign the purchase agreement and the transfer deed and the mortgage deed, and the translator will be there with you as well. And then you have about 2 months, 1.5 months of liability. And this is something we have to, I have to be very careful when I talk about it. This is a very gray zone. There are, let's see, if you move to a property and then the next day a huge leakage comes from the ceiling, most likely you didn't do anything, right? It was already there. Nobody saw. The selling agent, the selling party didn't know, or something like that. It is that's when the liability term comes in handy, because the seller is the one that has to fix that for you. But there are sellers and sellers. In your purchase agreement, it will be also an article saying that you are responsible for the property by the day you go to the notary. So they can use that as well, but they also have the responsibility to fix it. So that's why I say sellers and sellers, and that's why it's a gray zone. So I also have an example to give it to you. I think about 2 years ago or so, I had a client who moved in a property. They had three children. They bought a house with the kitchen is about 18 years old. And after 4 weeks, the dishwasher broke, right? So he wanted the seller to fix the dishwasher. So this is the gray zone. So we're using the dishwasher 2-3 times a day from a kitchen that is 18 years old. After 4 weeks moving in, it's really just bad luck. So the seller does not have the responsibility to fix that. So that's why I call gray zone. So you have to, and then when you buy a house that is more older, you need also to understand that there are things that can happen. It can happen anytime, actually. And if the transfer date was after that, it would most likely break when the seller was dead. And then he needed to fix it. But once it's yours, and then it takes a long time, and then you use it a lot, it's very hard to prove that the seller is the one that has to fix it. And then I remember in that case, bringing someone to make like a diagnosis of the dishwasher, it would be almost half of the price than buying a new one. So, and then you do have your insurance, right? It's mandatory, as Walter says, to have home insurance. So you do have that as well. So just for you to explain what this liability term is and how much of a gray zone is. Yeah. So this is nice for you to see what a timeline is, and then you can calculate more or less, depending on the transfer date, how long it will take for you to move into the property. But just to have an idea, if you have an offer accepted today, it will take about 1.5-2 weeks for signing the purchase agreement. It takes about, let's say, 4 weeks to sign to get the mortgage approved, most likely less, but 4 weeks. That's already 6 weeks. And then the notary needs about 2 weeks to write everything, the transfer deed and the mortgage deed. So that's already 2 months, 2.5 months until you can move in. It might be that we are able to move things faster, but just to control expectations when you need a house that fast, when you need a property that fast, that's more or less how long it takes, and especially if you need a mortgage. If you do not need a mortgage,
be done faster. We've done it before in our tender.
Yes, we have. Yeah,
it's not standard, but it also depends what property do you buy. If you buy my property and I'm waiting for my newly built to be finished in 5 months, I'm not going to move out next month.
Yeah, that's the case with my client that bought it in September. It's only moving in June because they are waiting for the new builds to be done. Yeah, indeed.
But these are agreements that you can make in the first point. So these are agreements you make when you go through the offer. And sometimes actually your offer is stronger if you can be flexible, because sometimes people want to wait 10 months or 6 months or 3 months. And from a mortgage perspective, we have options to get a mortgage that you do everything already, but your mortgage will be approved for the next 12 months. So even if it takes 6 months, that is normally not really an issue. And one nice thing how we do it in the Netherlands, at that last point, you see the transfer, the key handover or the transfer deed, that is actually the moment that we get paid. We don't get paid when we make an offer, when we do the mortgage. You only pay everybody if your mortgage is accepted, you bought the house, and you're going to get the keys to the property the next day.
I would say the only people you pay before that is the appraisal and the technical inspection, because they have been in the house and they have done the reports. The appraisal, most of the time, you can even send the invoice, and then you can only pay on that final note as well. But the technical inspector, he's just done. He's been in the house, and for an hour and a half, a report is done the next day. You get the invoice the next day. Good thing is the appraisal is tax deductible. A lot of things are tax deductible, so you can get that money back in your next taxes as well. Let's move forward. Oh, we have some frequently asked questions, and this is the time that is very nice for you, because I think a lot of people here will have the same questions. I remember I had when I came here. Can I get a mortgage with a temporary contract or as a freelancer? You already talked about the temporary contract, and I wanted to add one thing about that. You can, I know you said you can, Walter, and we all believe you, but I'm the living person who actually got a mortgage with a temporary contract, my first one. So that's nice.
It's quite standard in the Netherlands. It's just a simple statement. Freelancer, now things get interesting. This is a little bit of my specialism. I've been working with entrepreneurs for the last few years. It's yes, you can get a mortgage as a freelancer without any questions, but I have to explain some general acceptance criteria. The standard rule that most banks look at is they want to see a 3-year Dutch history. But it's really hard to find 3 years Dutch history if you're from America or France or Israel, and you come here, you set up an entity, the so-called Dutch BV, or an eenmanszaak, sole proprietorship. So standard banks want to see a 3-year history. But luckily, we've gotten this down with lenders. And now we can work, but you have to follow a certain type of requirements. And the main demand is a minimum of 1 year history needs to be here. And that can be a broken year from July 2021 till July 2022, as an example, or from May 2022 till May 2023. These cases are insanely extensive from what I need from you from documents wise. But it is possible to get a mortgage as a freelancer starting 1 year of having self-employed income in the Netherlands. And that last sentence is really important.
Yes, thank you very much. We have a next question is, what happens if you want to leave the country after several years?
From a mortgage perspective, you have 2 or 3 main options. One is a temporary permission to rent out your property. And I'm helping a lot of my clients with this. And I'll give you a quick anecdote. I had one of the directors of Shell. He wanted to do this. And he told me, Wouter, I'm going to get sent to America. I have to run a division there. Can I rent out my property? I said, what kind of assignment is it? And he said, I'm just continuing my assignment. It's an indefinite assignment. And then I said, impossible. It needs to be a maximum of a 5-year term. A week later, he comes back to me and he says, Wout, it's super coincidental. They changed my assignment to a 5-year term. Can I now rent it out? And then we got it approved. So it is important that if you do this, if you are on a temporary assignment, you can just convert it, or you don't even need to convert. You can get temporary permission to rent out your property. If you want to do indefinite renting of your property, you need to convert your house to an investment mortgage before you leave the country, and 30 to 40% of the value of the house needs to be repaid. And then I think Giovanna also might have some information on what you need to look out for the rental part now, because rental laws are strictening up a lot. So it's not always advisable to keep a property, maybe.
Yes, indeed. So for example, in Eindhoven, if you buy a property now, since last year, 1st of April, if you buy a property with a WOZ value and up to 355,000 euros, 355,000 euros. And let me explain to you what is a WOZ value. That's nothing to do with funda value. It has to do with the value given by the municipality to charge you taxes. So most likely the value of the property is higher than the W value most of the time. So if you buy a property now when the WOZ value is up to 355,000 euros, you cannot rent it out your property. You have no permission. You have to live in the property for at least 5 years before you rent it out. You need a permit from the city hall. If you can try to get a permit, but I have to be honest with you, it's been very hard. They are really making people living in the property for the first 5 years, and then after that you are allowed to rent it out. So even if you get the permission for the bank, you still need the permission from the city hall if you rent it out before those 5 years. Again, up to 355,000 355, WOZ value, nothing to do with market value, nothing to do with funda value, to do with municipality value. There is a website, woz.nl, and if you put the zip code, the postcode of the property and the number of cost of the house, the property, you can find out what the WOZ value is. And based on that, you can choose if you want to buy that property or not. Of course, if you had the budget, right? But yeah, this is one of the laws. You are able to rent it out 1 bedroom if you still live in the property without permission, but that's basically it. For you to go to another country and rent it out the property, you can't, if the WOZ is up to 355, you need permission from the city hall, and most likely they will tell you, no, the law is you have to live yourself in the property, being registered there for 5 years before you rent it out. This law is in place since last year, 1st of April, 2022. I think this is regarding the law of, this is for the whole area of Eindhoven. So this is for Veldhoven, Heldrop, Best, Noonan. So all the little cities around as well have the same rule. If you are in another city, if you are in this webinar in the cities or any other city than that one, then you have to go to the website of the municipality and take a look what are the rules for that specific municipality. But about 70% of the municipalities in the Netherlands now are saying yes to those rules. They do put a value by themselves, and then the rules come, they can make their own rules, but just for you to have an idea regarding rental part.
They call it, it's a lovely Dutch word, and Dion, I know you also love this language words. It's the language of love. It feels like
it is, isn't it? Oh my God.
It's called the zelfbewoningsplicht.
Zelfbewoningsplicht.
It's just the obligation that you need to live in it yourself.
Live in the
and also in Amsterdam, these rules are there. Utrecht, I think, as well. The values might be different. In Amsterdam, it's around 500, it's around 350 taxable value in Eindhoven.
Yeah.
What our government is trying to do is make starters have a better chance at the housing market. And therefore they say we want to stimulate investors as much as we can.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's not a bad thing, because I used to have a lot of investors as clients before that law came in place. And really, the people didn't even have a chance when I came with my investors to send an offer. So that makes you actually have a chance to buy a property without the crazy of the overbidding in cash, no mortgage needed. So there's literally no competition with those people, and that can make that gives more, much more opportunity to us humans without so much money to buy
normal peasants.
Yeah, indeed. Can I rent it out my property or out my house or a room? We have answered that already. It depends on the Eindhoven. The rules is the one I said it before.
A room is a good one, by the way. If you rent out less than 30% of your property, we don't need extra permission from the lender.
No.
So if you have a 2-bedroom apartment and you want to rent out 1 bedroom to another expat or a friend or anything,
that's possible
without big changes.
Even on the city hall in Eindhoven, you don't need a permission if you rented out 1 room of your property. More than that, yes, you do need to go to the city hall and you do need to get a permission for it. What is the, oh, that's a very good one. I really like that one, because I always have to explain that to my clients and intakes. But since Wouter is here, he's going to do the honors. What is the 10% deposit I need to complete?
This is a good thing. So we discussed you have two back out clauses. You have the cooling off period first, 3 days. And as Giovanna said, sign it on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It cannot end in a weekend, so you have until Monday. Then you have a subject to finance term in which you can also back out. But after that, you cannot back out of your deal anymore, because if you want to do it, you only have 2 options, cooling off period or financial contingency. So what happens if you back out after the period is ended? That's when a penalty becomes applicable. The penalty is 10% over the full purchase price. Yeah. Don't worry too much about it. In 15 years mortgage advice, I saw it paid out once, and it was just because the company went bankrupt from that client.
Yeah.
But it is a hard clause in the purchase contract. So what we do then is our clients pay this 10% to the notary. The notary keeps it in their escrow account and then can guarantee to the sellers, the money is safe and available. If the penalty becomes applicable, we pay it to you. But not many people have that 10% money laying around. Yeah. So then we can set an easy bank guarantee. And it's just a third party guaranteeing on your behalf that if the penalty would become applicable, that the guarantee company would pay the penalty for you. So It's what you prefer. If you have 10% of the purchase price just laying around, it's cheaper to transfer that to the notary and they keep it in their escrow account. Then when you got the mortgage done, they just make the end balance and transfer the remaining sum back to you.
Yeah.
Most people pick a bank guarantee. It's a simple form and it's 275 euros, but then the sellers have the guarantee, should the penalty become applicable, that they will pay it on your behalf.
Perfect. Yes, there you go. Thank you very much. So we're almost at the end of the presentation, but we're going to go through the questions, of course. Those are the three packages we have in our company: a smart package and complete package. So for the smart package, we charge 0.75 of the appraisal value, market value. Remember, even if you pay more than that, we charge 0.7% over that. Complete package is 1% of the appraisal value, because that's the market value. That's what we think it's the correct value to charge someone, not about the purchase price, because we don't know when someone will overbid or doing something like that. And we also have a package to help people to buy a new build property, and that has a fixed price. So, and here we have your fees. Wouter, do you want to say something about it?
Yeah, we work on a fixed base fee of 29.75. That means if you buy a normal house, this is our base fee. If you need some additional services, we can charge for this, life insurances. Entrepreneurs are a different fee, unfortunately. The time investment I need to make to get an entrepreneur approved is around 3 to 4 times, because I need to look at liquidity, solvability ratios, etc. But the standard mortgage, if you do not need extra life insurances or life insurances in general, most mortgages will be around 2,975 euros up to like 3,500. And it's all tax deductible. So the fees for mortgage advice, your valuation, you're going to get a big chunk refunded via your tax application. And we're more than happy to help you get that money back.
Yes, perfect. So now we just have a last poll, if you have the time, and if you can fill in that for us so we can get better next time, that will be great. And then we're going to go through all the Q&As and questions that you have. Perfect. Thank you so much for filling this in.
I see one question I can already start answering, one which is, can I sell a property by an example within the first 3 years? And we can explain a couple of different scenarios. And that is one, in the Netherlands, you will never pay a penalty to the bank if you sell a home. And I know this is different in some countries. I know in France, if you're in your first fixed contract of the interest rates, you pay a penalty if you sell your house. This is not applicable in the Netherlands. I say if you sell a property after 1 year, 6 months, it doesn't matter, there are no penalties applicable. So you can sell your property whenever you want, you reimburse the bank and with the mortgage amount, and the rest is yours. One good thing to remember is there is no capital gains tax in the Netherlands. So if you make 100,000 euro profit in the property, that's yours. There are no taxes on profits that you make. And there is no time cap in which you need to live in a house before you are able to sell it.
Perfect. Hi, Rafaela.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. We had a lot of questions during the presentation, but we still have some questions left here. So let's go through it. One from Massa. I want to know, as a highly skilled migrant living and working in Eindhoven right now, is it possible to buy a house in Belgium? I think it's more related to the mortgage, if she can have the mortgage here to buy a property there.
Strictly technical, the answer is really hard. The reason why is Dutch banks don't know what kind of documents are you showing for your Belgian property. Like if we get a valuation report by a Belgian valuator, the same rules and regulations are not applicable to the Belgian ones. So strictly technical, Dutch banks finance Dutch homes. Belgian banks will also most likely not finance a Dutch home. And this is because they don't know the market, they don't know the situation, and they cannot do the due diligence if a valuation report is good enough. So it doesn't matter if you're a highly skilled migrant or not. I also, as a fully Dutch person, I cannot get a mortgage for a property in Belgium.
Very clear, thank you. There is another question, mortgage related. How does a large deposit influence the mortgage amount?
How does a large mortgage down payment influence the mortgage amount? This is different than what you might come from. As an example, in America, if you want to buy a €1 million home and you put 200,000 as a mortgage and the rest out of cash, any bank will give you the money. In the Netherlands, these rules are a lot more strict. So putting a down payment in, it lowers your interest rate, which increases your mortgage a little bit, but still the mortgage should be payable on your income. So I get this question a lot, like, okay, I know the rules are strict, but if I pay 800,000 myself, can I then get a mortgage for 200K? And that answer is, yeah, it's the same rules. So mortgages should always fit on income. But of course, then you can top it up with your own savings. But if I tell you your maximum mortgage budget is, let's say, 400,000 euros, if you then put in 200,000 euros yourself, your budget will not go to 500 or something. Your mortgage will stay roughly at that 400. Maybe it will go to 405 or 410,000. But putting a big down payment in does not increase your mortgage capacity a lot.
Perfect, thank you. Another question for you, Walter, from Jacob. How to purchase a house as an European foreign student with a guarantor that can finance most of the purchase?
So the question is, can I buy something with a guarantee of parents or family, etc.? And in the past, this was done quite a lot. And this is really, really hard at this moment. There are some tiny options, but I just don't want to get your hopes up too high. If you're a student, that probably means you have a low income or no income at all. And your parents then might donate money so that you could pay your monthly payments. But from a Dutch mortgage perspective, the chances are slim that we can get a full mortgage approved or a high mortgage approved. But for this client, I need to look at the case, at the full situation. So please drop me an email or click the link to schedule an appointment, and one of my senior colleagues will give you a call to explain the process. But it's not easy, and especially when clients live outside of the EU or in other countries with different currencies, it's not easy. I don't say impossible, but the chances are slim, unfortunately.
And just to remind you all, you're going to get the presentation, and then you can see the emails to both of us. You can see the links to booking intakes and our contacts and everything. So after today, if you remember something that you just don't remember now, feel free to send us an email.
Exactly.
Great, thank you. And there is one last question. It's a very good one, also, again, for Walter. Are there other alternatives, loans to cover the extra expenses like the closing fees?
Yeah, there are, but this is a little sketchy to explain. But okay, standard, you are allowed to borrow 100% loan to value, which means you leave out 5% for the closing cost. Let's say I tell you you have a budget of 400,000 euros, but you borrow for your mortgage 300,000 euros. So only if you do not borrow your maximum mortgage, you could apply for a separate credit at the bank still. I advise them to do it before you buy a house, because otherwise in that process of getting your mortgage approved, you also need to run to the bank to get a normal loan. Yeah. But yes, in some cases, it is possible to borrow the money needed for the down payment as well. But remember, it is only possible if you buy under your maximum capacity. If you also borrow your maximum capacity, let's say I tell you 400,000 is your budget and you buy for 400,000, then it does mean that you cannot borrow extra money anymore.
I was really afraid you were saying, then you have to convince Giovanna to buy much less than the market.
No.
It's putting the responsibility on me now.
No, I'm not going to put that responsibility on you, because I do around 100 mortgages a year, and God. I see it like once in 50, once in 100.
Hard, isn't it?
It just hardly ever happens. So don't get your hopes up.
Yeah.
Because valuators, they get in trouble if they do this. And they need to write a story like, why is the purchase price lower than the market value? And then the valuator should write a statement to the validation institute.
And they have to approve that, huh? They have to approve that.
Yeah, I believe we cover all the questions at the moment.
Oh, that's great.
Very good.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. Here are the links we talked about it that you can click, and if you forgot something, or you could just want to get in touch to get more deeply on your own situation, on the properties you are seeing or your financial, please let us know. And Walter, thank you very much for being here. That was very nice. I think we have helped a lot of people. So let's see how it goes now. And yeah, I wish you all a very nice day.
Thank you for the invite, and thank you all for joining this. I hope you all stayed awake with the mortgage information, but looking forward to help you with some personal questions. And Giovanna, Rafaela, thank you for the invitation, organizing everything, and hope you have a great evening, great day.
You too. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye.